Two is better than one, and Tata Motors knows this, which is why its iCNG range of cars gets two smaller cylinders to store that CNG instead of one massive one. So instead of having just enough boot space to store one onion, you can now store two soft bags. But this goes a step further because this is the first car with a factory fitted CNG kit that also gets an AMT automatic transmission. And it's more important than you think.
Feel the power. Power. Can you feel the power?
Important because it's pretty much only Tata Motors that's treating CNG as an alternate fuel and not as an afterthought. They're offering CNG on various models, making it available with top-end variants, and recently they innovated with the twin-cylinder iCNG range. Important also because CNGs are great for the city. They're cheaper to run, cheaper to refuel, and almost as cheap to maintain. And what you need in the city is an automatic.
Can you feel it? Can you feel the power? Feel the power.
An AMT in this case, and just as is the case with most other AMTs, the shifts aren't super smooth, but it's alright. The pros definitely outweigh the cons here. But one con of a CNG car that still can't be outweighed is the waiting. It's not that it takes more time to fill CNG, that's not the case. It's just that there's fewer CNG pumps as compared to regular fuel pumps, and that just means more cars, more waiting, and that means that your 5-minute splash and dash isn't usually possible. It's something you need to account for, but what you get in return is money. Or well, the lack of money needed to run it. A full tank of gas on the Tiago iCNG AMT costs about 800 rupees and gives it a range of 240 kilometers on CNG alone, which works out to 3 rupees per kilometer. In total, CNG costs about half to one-third to run per kilometer compared to a petrol car. But these figures of course vary due to pressure and price changes of the respective fuels.
Good girls be bumping to this like disco moves on your bitch like whoa. Blow so hard, make a wish come true. Time to look straight, but I bet you look good.
The horsepower also changes when you go from CNG to petrol, but it's not a change you'd really notice. Firstly, because you're not really buying this car for its performance, and secondly, because there's very little reason to drive on petrol in the first place, since the Tiago iCNG starts off in CNG. You don't need to run on petrol for 10 kilometers for every 300 kilometers of CNG driving, but that's mainly to keep the petrol fuel system running properly. And while CNG powered cars don't need too much extra care as compared to petrol cars, keeping their engine healthy is still crucial for a seamless driving experience. And that's why we recommend Castrol Magnatec car engine oil with heavy load protection. This fully synthetic engine oil, having the latest API specs, is ready for your BS6 cars as well, ensuring non-stop engine protection from every start. And it's about time we start considering CNGs as genuine alternatives to fossil fuel cars. In this, guys, the CNG Tiago is just as comfortable as the petrol one, it's just as feature packed, and it's just as good or bad looking depending on what you already felt about its design. There's no real difference between the two apart from the fuel that they burn. Tata's thought of almost everything. The spare tire is underneath the car can start in CNG mode, there's an auto cutoff if it detects a leak in the system, and because it gets all of the features of the regular Tiago, like the 7-inch touchscreen, TPMS, automatic headlamps, automatic wipers and more, you won't really feel like you're driving anything different. It's only your packing and to some extent your pocket that will feel the difference, and the latter isn't a complete positive because at 8.9 lakh rupees, this Tiago iCNG AMT XZ Plus variant aside from being a mouthful, is 95,000 rupees more expensive than the petrol-powered Tiago XZ Plus with the AMT transmission. It's also 55,000 rupees more expensive than the Tiago iCNG manual with the same XZ Plus trim. Is it worth it? Well, if running costs are your main concern, then yes, it does make sense because none of its rivals offer the convenience of an automatic and some of the features of the top spec XZ Plus trim with the power of CNG. But do remember that there are a few very real and major shortcomings of CNG before you dive into it, and also the fact that you can buy a couple of diesel cars around the 10 lakh rupee mark that will also be relatively affordable to run, like Tata's very own Altroz and Hyundai's Venue as well. But if you are locked onto CNG and you want a small urban runabout, then the Tiago should definitely be fairly high up on your list. As always, take a test drive before you buy, subscribe to PowerDrift and comment below on what you would prefer, a CNG hatchback or a diesel compact SUV. If I were to pick, I'd pick the diesel.